Good morning and welcome to the Elk Grove Unified School District's virtual sport special board meeting through the Zoom webinar platform. We thank you for joining us and ask for your patience in advance as we navigate this platform for conducting school board meetings. Legislative bodies, including school districts, are now permitted to hold board meetings telephonically or by other electronic means because on March 17th, 2020, the governor issued Executive Order N2920. Suspending certain provisions of the California Ralph M. Brown Act. In addition, consistent with the March 19th, 2020 statewide shelter-in-place order issued by the governor, Executive Order N3320, the Sacramento County shelter-at-home orders issued on March 19th, 2020 and April 7th, 2020, and the Center for Disease Control social distance guidelines, which discourage public gatherings. This special board meeting is being conducted via the Zoom webinar platform. Public comments can be submitted to the board about items on the special board meeting agenda. Because this is a special board meeting, only comments directly related to an item on the agenda will be read during the appropriate time. Individuals with questions or comments on general school district issues may address those at a regularly scheduled board meeting. All electronic public comments that were submitted to the board through the Google platform will be provided to the board in writing. Please be advised that everyone participating via Zoom webinar is muted and all board member votes will be by roll call. Carmine, your camera's moved. Members of the board present today are myself, Board President Beth Albiani, Board Clerk, Dr. Crystal Martinez-Alier, Board Member Nancy Cheres is ill today and will not be able to join us. Board Member Carmine Forcina, Board Member Chet Madison, Board Member Tony Perez, and Board Member Bobbie Singh-Allen. In addition to today's Zoom webinar meeting is being video recorded and will be available on the district's YouTube channel. We will start with the Pledge of Allegiance, which Dr. Bindi Grewal has graciously offered to host for us.
Thank you. Please stand. Salute. Pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. You may be seated.
Thank you very much. We're going to start with our opening and review for the day. Mr. Hoffman.
Thank you, President Albiani. So exciting day. We actually get to hear from our principals today from 3 of our regions. This is something that we put into place a couple of years back at the request of the board. And we have 3 of these meetings set up during the year. And we have 3 regions that will share with us today. So Cosumnes Oaks region, the Elk Grove region, and the Pleasant Grove region. And there's phenomenal work going on across the district. And I'm really excited that we had the opportunity to continue doing some of our normal business in a different way. And that is the opportunity for the board to hear directly from our principals and interact with them. Again, in a virtual way, but it's something that we value and really glad to do. So that's the overview of the day. You'll notice that there's an extended opportunity here, and that's because I also have a thank you and a well wishes that I want to do for Ms. Bobbie Singh-Allen, I should say, soon to be mayor, Ms. Bobbie Singh-Allen, and I'm really excited for her. I'm sad for us in a way, but also excited because having her at the city will do nothing but help our relationships with a very, very important partner. So I've had the pleasure of working with Bobbie the last 6 years. She served on the board here for more than 8 years, and she is. We use the word champion when we talk about Bobbie a lot, and I would imagine that I will not be the first one to use that word. So sorry to everybody for stealing it. But Bobbie, she's a champion for the school district as a whole, and I always appreciate her taking the time to represent the schools that she is, directly within her within a region, but she always speaks to the needs of kids across the entire district, and that's it's a kind of a hallmark of who we are, and she's a huge part of that. As a person, I couldn't be more proud to have worked with her this time. She is smart, intelligent, dedicated. She asks me really tough questions sometimes, and I appreciate that. And she's also plugged in a way with the community, and that became obvious with the election and the results of the election, of the number of people, more people than ever voted for a mayor, and she was part of that process. So she's plugged in a way that she often lets me know of things that I need to know, and I usually get a little heads up before other folks know, because she's so plugged in. And the other piece that I will say is I have more pictures on the internet and in social media as a result of Ms. Bobbie Singh-Allen than all other people combined. So I while I try to duck out of them from time to time, she never lets me fully duck out, and I give her a bad time about it, but I'm proud to stand next to her every time she's done a selfie and included me. So Bobbie, thank you from the 63,000 kids, from the 7,000 employees, and all the families that are connected. You've done an amazing job in your role as a board member, and I'm excited for you. I really do think the mayor position is a critical job, and the connection between the district. I look forward to our 2x2s, and so we'll get to interact with each other. And I look forward to the work that we'll do moving forward. So congratulations to you, well deserved, and honored to have had this time with you in Elk Grove Unified. And you'll always be part of the family. So we appreciate it very much.
Thank you, Chris. I can go down roll if everybody wants to say a quick word, or whatever word. I'm not. Dr. Martinez-Alier, would you like to be next?
Sure.
Followed by Mr. Fortuna.
Well, I'm really happy for Mrs. Singh-Allen's new journey as mayor and being elected in, and congratulations to her for that. I know I will miss the times that we have spent together. She has been a colleague and a great mentor. She has really also helped in a lot of my work, or supported the work that I have done in the Native American community. And we're really appreciative of the time she spent helping to encourage different workshops, different trainings. I got to sit alongside of her in her role as CSBA delegate, and the relationships that she was able to form with other school districts in the region has really been helpful, and helped again to shed a mentor light on our district as well, and help spread the word on some of the work we've done here. And I appreciated being able to sit alongside of her in that role as well. She's very dedicated to our students and our families, and as well as our superintendent mentioned, I will miss all those selfies that were being taken at the graduations. We had a fun time together, and her knowledge and skill set, definitely will be missed here. But I know in her new role, she'll be able to support and hopefully provide more leadership as well to the community. So I appreciate that. I'm sad to see her go. It's bittersweet, but know that hopefully we will remain in contact. And I'll use the analogy, congratulations to you. You won the game of bingo. So thanks.
Very nice. Thank you. Mr. Fortuna, followed by Mr. Mattson. You're on mute, Mr. Fortuna.
I hit it.
I know.
Okay. Any organization that remains static is doomed to failure. In my early years as a board member, Bobbie at that time was the only one willing to step up and work with me to look at doing things differently. And together we accomplished a lot. and I certainly appreciate that willingness. Chris had mentioned that Bobbie certainly spent time visiting schools within her trustee area, but was a champion for all kids. I really want to expand on that comment because each of us as board members have a responsibility to have visibility throughout the district. And Bobbie's done that. She didn't just spend time visiting the schools within her trustee area. She spent time visiting schools within the school district. And that is the only way you can have a real understanding of the needs and the challenges faced by students, families, and staff. And that's always been a priority for you, Bobbie. You've had some pet projects that to me have been, I'm using the word memorialized. It's the one that comes to mind. I'm sure there's better words, but things have been memorialized certainly as the district's effort towards anti-bullying and the messages that you have ensured that people have heard. We have our policies, our procedures, our training, and you've been a big part of that. Been a part of Read Across America, which is an event that is so important to our kids. It opens doors that otherwise wouldn't be open for them. You've said, and I know you meant it, that there's no more important work than being a board member. We have the children's future in our hands. We provide all that we can for all kids so that they can be successful. And now you're going to move to another level. And as Chris was saying, as we have our 2x2s, I'm sure with your understanding of the district and what our issues are, that we can get our work done in an expedient way. So thank you, congratulations, and enjoy your next endeavor.
Thank you. Mr. Madison, followed by Mr. Perez.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Bobbie, there's a lot of things already have been said about you that's been so positive. And for me, knowing you 8+ years now, you have become a friend of mine. And I just want to clarify some of the attributes that I saw in you over a period of time. Chris mentioned some of them, the smart, the intellect that you do have is by no mistake well known. But most of all that I've appreciated you with is that your common sense. An example of that is we went through budget negotiations, I shouldn't say discussions within the board. You always listen intently, and you had your thoughts, your opinions, but at the final voting, you always demonstrated the right direction, what was good for kids, and you voted in the right way. And I want to thank you for that, because as you move on to being a mayor, I think those attributes are it's going to bode well with you, that you are a listener to details, you're thoughtful, and I think that's part of your makeup that has made you very successful in your life. You spend a lot of good quality times with people. You listen to them intently, and people have recognized that. And that's one reason why I think that you won the mayor position, that you are well recognized throughout Grove, Sacramento, and you have some good footprints there. So I ask you to continue those qualities, and I know you will. You're going to be very successful. You represented us at CSBA, nothing but good comments, the legacy you left there as well too. So I'm looking forward to seeing a lot of positive things with you in the governorship of Elk Grove. And I personally, I don't think you're going to stop there either. I think you're going to continue on. You and Jake and the family will always be a personal friend of mine. And I really wish you the very, very best. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Madison. Mr. Perez?
Testing.
You're good?
Okay. Well, congratulations and good luck to you. I have more questions than comments because, you know, you're going to be playing a very important role in this geographical area, South Sacramento, Elk Grove. And the questions I have, yeah, I know you support us 100%, but yet in the role of capacity, would you support a 1% tax increase for our
Mr.
students?
Perez, Mr. Perez.
Yeah, that's what I want to know. You know, things like that in effect. Do you support a strong mayorship for Elk Grove Unified? You know, things like that. They're very important. And in your capacity, you know, you can make a lot of change within our community and speak out on those issues. Don't take the middle of the road stance. You know, stand for children, 100%. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Well, Bobbie and I are both criers and I have a meeting to run. So I am not going deep. I want to thank you for all you've done to welcome me onto the board. You were here when I came. We've had lunch at your brother's restaurant in the days when you could go be together. We've had evening Christmas gatherings with your husband in my front room that I enjoyed, and hours at CSBA and Macy's trips between graduations and all sorts of fun. So I feel blessed you're my colleague. I feel confident you're my friend, and I am your friend. And as I was speaking to one of our friends, Lisa Kaplan, the other day, we're going to put on the red lipstick and move on with the day. And it's going to be great. And feel free to call me anytime. I have your number. And I know that this is not the end of anything. And just like I had to let my child go to college and be happy for him while I was sad for myself, I will let you go to the mayor's office with as many good wishes as I sent Nick off with. And I wish you all the best. I do want to say one thing I did write in my notes that I didn't mention. I think there is some real pride in some legacy items you helped create and leave behind. And we are all one of 7, but you are a strong part of these things. The pie group that we created while you were here is a lasting tribute to our school district, and the strength and the help you gave us in building those relationships with our employees will benefit us. We all feel the value of it. You're an important part of that. The discipline matrix we've created over the last few years, a huge part of the anonymous reporting system. Those are just some things that stuck out to me that we all do, but you had a very large part and we're very passionate about. And you've always been willing to have the hard conversation. You taught me how to do that, how to listen with empathy, how to hear what people are saying, and that I didn't have to have the answers, and I didn't have to have a fight, and I didn't have to be right. But the important thing was to hear people and to let them know I was listening and I cared. So I'm real close. I'm going to close. And I forgot, I meant to bring my red lipstick, but I'm telling you, I don't look at it like you. So we're moving on. I'm very excited about today. Bobbie, did you want to say something? Okay,
Thank you. Yes. I
and
did.
then we'll close with you and then we'll open.
Oh, boy. The greatest work that I had in my life outside of the birth of my children has been service to the school board. This is harder than I thought it would be. Yes, I'm a crier, but it's because I truly love and respect all of you. And yes, that includes you, Mr. Perez. We may not agree on everything, but I know each and every single one of you, your heart's in the right place. You care about our kids. You care about our staff. You care about our district. And that's all anyone can ask for at the end of the day. And I know that whoever is going to come in to replace me and the great shoes and legacy you leave, Mr. Madison, I have great hopes for Mr. Yang, and I know that he will serve us proudly as well. It's not easy. The work is hard. The work is challenging. But the best we could do is be there for each other, to listen with empathy. When we hear complaints, they come from a place of pain. And I never fault anyone, regardless of who it is and what they say, and however painful it might be, that from there is a place of pain. Maybe there's a misunderstanding, but they have the right to be heard. And the best we can do is provide a place and an outlet to listen and hear their concerns. I will take my equity lens that I've learned from all of you, from the great work that we've done as a school board and as a district in my new role, because that equity lens is so important in any decision-making process to make sure that our underserved communities are heard. Because it's real easy for the status quo and the loudest people in the room to dominate that conversation, but it's to be there for those that aren't always heard. And I take that responsibility seriously. I love all of you. This is just the beginning. I vow to have increased collaboration, because that's where we as a city, as a school district, will be stronger. And I know we have those opportunities in place. But like I said, the greatest work I know is going to be the legacy with the school district. Our children are our future, and you have tremendous responsibility over the next several months as we navigate through distance learning, reopening of schools, COVID-19 and its severe impact on our children and our families and our staff. And I trust that you will do your due diligence to help and assist in those phases. And I will play my role wearing my new hat and collaborating to make sure that we are thoughtful in that approach. And please continue to be a champion for VAPA. It is another passion project that I'm so proud of, that we've expanded resources for our visual and performing arts, but always for our highest need students, our students that are suffering right now with distance learning, with our lost learning. There's a lot of pain out there, and I know that we will do our best job to represent them. And I will do my best job to always be an advocate. I want to thank all of you for the last 8 years. This is not goodbye. This is hello to a certain extent, and we will continue to be in each other's lives. But sincerely thank all of you for welcoming me into your hearts as well. For knowing that, that I wasn't just someone that needed to be seen and to be heard, but I wanted to be a vocal champion for our highest need students. Please carry that torch. They need all of us. So thank you, everyone. I love you all. Blessings to you all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Congratulations, Bobbie.
Same breath. Oh, all right. And what a good day, Bobbie, to go out on. A good day of hearing things and all the good things going on in our different
I
schools.
will quietly leave the meeting as soon as I've got another 15, 20 minutes, and then I'm actually going to be sworn in later this afternoon.
Oh, well, congratulations, and we will miss you, as we've all said. Mr. Perez, you got one of his signs. I'm not sure if you got them.
Thank you, Teddy. I'll be around, but I won't announce my departure. I'll just quietly exit the meeting.
All right.
Thank
Well,
you all.
Thank you very much. I'll call on Ms. Grewal, Dr. Grewal, if you would please introduce the consumer.
Yes, thank you, President Albiani, and good morning to all members of the board, Superintendent Hoffman, Ms. Apples, and Cabinet. The principals from the Cosumnes regions will be sharing information about distance learning in terms of how it's going, students' engagement, student progress, social and emotional learning, challenges, and successes. So now our Cosumnes team, when I call your name, if you can please wave so we can all see you. Our principal at Cosumnes High, Johnny Hargi. Johnny, can you turn your video on there?
It's disabled. Someone has to start it for me.
It's saying that our cameras were disabled by the host.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mr. Press, do you have a problem? You're muted, Mr. Press.
Yeah,
Thank
just
you.
a comment. We're getting comments from the public. Comments. If you could read the comments from some of the members that are on the Zoom meeting. Bobbie, I wasn't sure that she knew that.
Those,
Okay,
those
thank
are,
you.
those are internal within this group, Mr. Press.
Okay,
Yeah.
well, but I just want to make draw that to your attention that there's some people within our Zoom meeting that want to congratulate Bobbie and wish her well.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Press. Sorry to interrupt. Dr.
Sure.
Greenwald, we can start
Yeah.
again. at the
Yeah,
top.
absolutely. So our principal at Cosumnes High School, Johnny Hargi,
Good morning.
and our principal at Pinkerton Middle School, Chandra Victor.
Good morning.
Principal at Elliott Ranch, Catherine Van Housen. And our principal at Zender Ranch, Michelle Murphy.
Hello.
All right, I believe we're going to start with our high school.
All right. Again, good morning. I'm Johnny Howdige, again, principal of Cosumnes Oaks High School. I'm going to try to be as brief as I can, but I will provide you with an update on our efforts to support distance learning, our SEL, social emotional learning activities, as well as our equity efforts. At the end, I'll provide an update on what we're doing as a CO region of schools. So as a CO school, as a CO, our fundamental strategy for success so far this year has been sharing best practices for how to do distance learning. If you visit classrooms now, you will see students engaged in group discussions and breakout room sessions, collaborating on Google Slides and Pear Deck. For our math program, math can be a challenge for our students. And so our Math 1 team of teachers, they actually run a peer tutoring program where our older students are tutoring our younger students in math through Zoom. We also have our new Math 2 and Math 3 support classes to help our most struggling students. In terms of social emotional learning, distance learning has definitely brought the social emotional aspect to the forefront. It's really the focus of what we're doing now. In this time, our PBIS team has taken ownership in developing SEL lessons that we teach students on what we call now Wellness Wednesdays. So every Wednesday, our teachers provide mini lessons during each period. So for example, today's Wednesday. So right now students are in classes practicing meditation and breathing exercises. In the last period today, students will reflect on how to incorporate this mindfulness in their daily lives. In terms of attendance, our attendance rate since August has actually hovered above 98%, which is actually better than what it was last school year at this time. However, we do know that students are struggling, even if it's a very small percentage of our students. With that said, our administrators, our counselors, and our PBIS Tier 2 team, we've been working closely together to support our truant and at most risk students. On a Google Sheet, we actually have a tracking system on how we're actually following up with each of these students who are truant and at most risk. Until recently, we were actually doing home visits as well. We've been calling them porch visits because we're never entering the home. I have done at least 15 of these myself, wearing a mask, never going inside the home, but talking to families about attendance, grades, and how we can better support their child. This has been a very personable way to connect with the families of our most at-risk students, and we're definitely seeing a positive response. My most endearing home visits have been with families who work on farms and live in rural areas of Elk Grove. In terms of communication, we send out a weekly newsletter every Sunday that details upcoming virtual activities, deadlines, and resources. For student activities, this week, we're actually in Holiday Spirit Week. Our Black Student Union is sponsoring a virtual cooking event tonight. And next week, our Link Crew is hosting a virtual baking competition. In terms of our CO regional work, our CO principal team has collaborated on several key items along the lines of equity and anti-racist practices. And so they include, we're actually meeting once a week with the CO region of principals and vice principals to conduct a book study. And we're conducting a book study on How to Be an Anti-Racist by Ibram Kendi. So this book addresses how we can empower ourselves to be agents of change in a system of covert racist policies and practices. So each school site is implementing or developing their own action plan to share this book with their staff and faculty. And I can speak for CO. In January, we're leading a book study with 15 of our teacher leaders. And then through 3 months, our 15 teacher leaders will go through the book study. And then they, in the last term of our school year, will lead a book study with all of our staff from April, May. In working with the district CT department in terms of our equity efforts, our school is now piloting an equity-based CT application to eliminate barriers to our different CT programs. There in the past have been some issues with equity and access to some of our CT pathways, including our medical pathway. And so we're focusing on that this year. In addition to our CT program, last year we started focusing really on improving our efforts on recruiting African-American and Latinx students into our AP program. And since last year, we've seen a 4% increase in our African-American students taking AP courses, and we hope to continue that work this year. Finally, CO's equity team of teachers and staff, we're participating in the Equity Leadership Institute starting in January to continue the work in increasing equitable outcomes for our students. And that is it. Thank you. And I would like to now pass the mic to my colleague, Chandra Victor, principal at Pinkerton Middle School.
Good morning. Thank you for having us. I wanted to start off by talking about the successes and challenges of distance learning. The success overall is I really do feel that Pinkerton teachers have been able to mimic very closely in-person learning in the distance learning environment. What I've heard from a lot of our staff is that it is going much better than they anticipated. So, and I think a lot of them are pretty proud of what they've been able to do. They've been implementing a lot of new strategies and have learned a lot since the beginning of the school year with Zoom, Google Classroom, using breakout rooms, Pear Deck, Padlet. We've had a variety of PD pop-ups, we're calling them, on site to help our staff learn new technologies to use. We've been focusing a lot on active participation this year to make sure that it's not a monologue, right? Kids are interacting with the curriculum and interacting with the teacher and actively participating, and they're not passive in their learning. And we've had a lot of positive comments from our parent community. The challenges really of distance learning are just managing the social emotional aspects of students and staff. It's very stressful on a lot of people, as you all know too as well, because you're making a lot of decisions for the district. Many teachers have shared that they feel like first-year teachers. The good thing about that is all of their colleagues are in the same position, right? Everybody's new, trying to learn something new. We do know that there is a lack of engagement by a larger number of students. I know that's extremely frustrating for my teachers who care so deeply about their kids. And analyzing grades, and I'll get into this a little bit later, you know, there are more students that are struggling. When looking at our attendance data, our attendance data overall is better than last year. As far as students attending, we are, you know, 97% or higher. Gen Ed is 99.25%, and our self-contained classes and ABS classes are all above 90%. Our chronically absent students, we have 27 out of 1,046 students that are chronically absent, which is about 2.6%. The majority of these are African American and Hispanic students, and we know who these students are and have been making efforts to connect with them. If we look at our student progress for grades, I always look at who has a 3.0 or above, and really those numbers are pretty similar to last year. It's about 3/4 of our students. However, when we look at who has a 2.0 or below, that's where the data is concerning. For example, in 7th grade, when I looked at progress reports from terms 1 and 2 and the report card from term 1, 6.8% of 7th graders had a 2.0 or below for all 3 of those grading periods, whereas last year it was only 1.6%. This year, 8th grade, it's 11.4% of students who have a 2.0 or below for all 3 grading periods, and last year it's 1.2%. So concerning numbers, and we really are making efforts to try to connect with those students and families. So to re-engage with our families, as I mentioned just a minute ago, we have been monitoring attendance, and this is at all levels from our school office technician to counselors reaching out weekly. Admin is also involved in making phone calls, and we've done a few porch visits. I did chat with Principal Victor. I had 3 sessions offered one day where parents could come and interact with me. We try to have a positive presence on social media. Email communications are constantly coming out from all levels at our site, and we have had parent-teacher conferences as well. For social emotional learning and activities on our campus, we have lunchtime activities every Friday that students can participate in. We have about 30 clubs also that students can participate in outside of the learning day. Advocacy lessons are every Monday, and those are put together by our PBIS team and our counselors, and those focus on social emotional learning and how to be successful in distance learning. Teachers constantly check in with their kids for their well-being to see how they're doing and are making phone calls home. And also our counselors check in too as well. We are continuing with our equity work. It's nothing new at our site. It's ongoing. In January, I have a teacher and a vice principal from Zinner Ranch that will be doing a joint book study on how to be an anti-racist. I've offered 3 optional PD sessions this year for staff on focused around anti-racism and how to frame brave conversations. And then we also analyze our below 2.0 data and try to connect with these students and make sure they're getting what they need. And in closing, I just want to say I'm so proud of what we've been able to do at Pinkerton. I feel like our community is pretty happy with what we're doing overall. And the staff has been working so hard to try to engage students, and their efforts really are making a difference. And I just appreciate everything that they've been doing. And now I would like to introduce Katie Van Housen, the principal at Elliott Ranch.
Hi, everybody. Thank you, Ms. Victor. And it's such an honor to present to the Elk Grove School Board how we're doing at Elliott Ranch with distance learning. I would say our biggest challenges, there are 2. One is the teachers are exhausted. Everything that they've done for years, they're having to create a Google Doc for it, the things that they naturally, instinctively do in the classroom. So that's been stressful for them, and I try to really support them and help them know that everything is going to be okay in the long run. Also, student feedback. I'm doing walkthroughs early on, was noticing especially quiet and shy girls that wouldn't answer. So if there's a big screen like this, and if they're not called on, they'll just fade into the background. And so student engagement, I think, is our most important thing that we're working on. It's our school-wide focus this year, and we talk about it at staff meetings. What does student engagement look like in your class? The teachers have switched up how they do the whiteboards, for example, or how they call on kids, going back to those sticks that you pull in elementary school to really get everybody involved. All of our teachers are using the afternoon remediation time to meet with their students to fill in gaps and remediate. We have a tutor that we hired through LCAP that we have actually shifted even more money to through LCAP, because there were some learning losses, especially with the kindergarten going to first grade and that all critical phonics and reading time. Our first grade teachers had more of a kindergarten batch than usual to retrain how to be students, but they are all catching up and making great progress. Our tutor is graduating a handful at a time, and then we'll identify a couple more and bring them into her schedule. She does those in the afternoons during the asynchronous time as well. Our MTSS Tier 2 team is really cranked up. We actually meet every week, because every time we hear about a student who's not showing their face, or just there's a concern of any kind, we're just getting on it right away. I'm so lucky to have a great MHT, great school psych, great PBIS coach, and we all work together with the teachers, and we're just making sure to communicate like crazy with everybody, the parents and the kids. Our successes, I would say, I almost feel like we have a stronger sense of community over here in the Stone Lake area. I've really pushed to make our school be a community resource during this time. I feel like people are so isolated, and so we've been able to have a couple of drive-through where we just hand out, the PTO helps hand out a prepackaged ice cream or something just free to let them come, just to even see other people in cars waving. Of course, we've had to shut that down for the rest of this year, but we had our library. Have kept our library open this whole time, and the kids order online, and our librarian built a box for returns out in front of our office. And the kids come on Friday mornings and get their books and drop them off at any time. I think that's been really important to just help people feel like we're still here. I still do my coffee with the principal every month and have really good turnouts. We still have our family science nights. In fact, tonight at 5 is one of them, put on by Sierra Nevada Journeys, and they do it all online now. We did our Apex Fun Run, and they did a digital dance thing at the end instead of the fun run. But our PTO actually made $8,000 from that, because people are desperate to have something at the elementary level anyway for their kids to be involved in and to do. And then I just want to say I'm so grateful for our region and our work on equity issues. I did the book study with Michelle Murphy back in the summer on how to be an anti-racist. We're all looking at our policies, like simple things like a reading incentive program has things built in policies and procedures that can be actually have racial barriers for kids and families. So we're looking at all of that. Michelle Murphy and I both also care deeply about preparing our 6th graders to move to middle school. And this year that's really hard, but we're still keeping some grade switching with some math and some social studies. And then we really are focusing on writing instruction. We think that that can help all of our kids be ready for honors classes and try to take on the world and strive and thrive and achieve even in these strange times. And with that, I will turn you over to my esteemed colleague, Michelle Murphy. Michelle.
Oh, sorry. Good morning. It's always good to see the board. For CO collaboration between the elementary schools, it's very nice. We're a small region. We have a new school coming soon, but Katie and I have the great opportunity. It's just us two, so we have a collaboration focused intently on writing production. We know that writing is the gatekeeper for AP and honors, and our recent data for our region demonstrated that only 4% of our African American students were participating. And our goal, Katie and I, is to ensure that our elementary students are prepared and have the readiness for AP and honors, which relies heavily on writing, multi-paragraph writing pieces, and readiness for rigor. At Zender Ranch, what we've done to prepare our students for the rigor of honors and to encourage all students to participate. Low participation often comes when they enter middle school because they aren't used to the rigor of honors. And we start at Zender Ranch in 4th grade with DBQs, which are data-based inquiries, which give students the opportunities to read complex text. and write to multiple sources. So that is our work to prepare to increase the number of students overall, but especially our African American students in participating in honors when they reach Pinkerton. How it's going in terms of how our students are faring academically. Zinder Ranch came out hot out the blocks with CAS data. I'm very proud of my teachers. We were number 3 in ELA and in math and number 2 in science when the data came out. I was very proud of that. And our focus going into online learning was not to increase the number of students who were at risk. So for we've done an exceptional job in kindergarten with fewer than 5% of our students at risk when we finished the first term. And the trend data looks, first grade has about 20% of students at risk, and we're concerned about that, of course, because the research shows that if you're not reading by the end of first grade, you will remain a straggler as it relates to reading continuing through elementary. So we're on top of that. We're very fortunate to have intercession monies. We applied, turned in our request for intercession, received the money. And so what we're able to do is all of those students who were identified as at risk now receive, will have intercession. And we also are reserving some of that time for tutoring or intervention after asynchronous time. So kids can have a break from the Zoom and then come back to some intervention with a tutor. We have a retired teacher, an Elk Grove teacher. You know, intercession, anytime you do intervention, the most powerful piece is always going to be the talent of the teacher. And we have a retired special education teacher offering those. Our attendance is excellent. We are at 99%. We have about 11 classes that have averaged 100%. We do reading counts, so we're able to track our students' books. And Zinder Ranch students have read 11,372 books. I'm very proud of that, obviously. And in terms of social emotional learning, we purchased last year a program that teachers can use in the classroom, which basically gives kids scenarios, real life scenarios, where they talk about different situations and how they would respond to them, as well as my teachers and I are writing human dignity lessons, really trying to pull in the board policy around human dignity and make it real at Zinder Ranch. So we've pulled those lessons in, and my 4 minutes is up. Thank you.
I am not sure of the format. Dr. Grewal?
We, at this point, open it up to questions the board may have.
All right. I feel like we got Miss Michelle. We'll start with our opposite order, Mr. Perez, followed by Mr. Masson.
Let me look here. Good job, all of you. Good job. So, regarding distance learning and learning loss of students of color, have you wrote it or revised your amendment to your local school LCAPs? Anybody? Any level?
I just want to clarify, I just want to make sure the question. So are you asking if we revised our LCAP plans to
Yes,
better support?
I'm not sure at this district level that, I wonder, or, you know, since this COVID has gone on, and our matrix have changed, and the LCAPs are, when we started our LCAPs, there was no pandemic. And then we have a pandemic, and has your LCAP changed or been amended for these objectives that you have encountered through this academic year?
And yes, I can answer that and say that yes, in our first meeting for our school site council this year, we did shift a chunk of that money to the tutor so that she could address those learning loss needs, especially in that kindergarten to first grade and some first to second and second to third. But that's where she's really focusing, is for the reading and the learning loss.
And
I
Mr.
can say-
Perez, oh, I'm sorry. Mr. Perez, usually when I make changes to my budget, it is informed through data, and we now have Illuminate. And so I'm waiting to get all of my data out of a very large school, and I'm year round, so some students are off and some are on. So I'm really waiting to get my solid data from Illuminate so that we use our money in the right direction.
And I'll share,
What data do you use? We have, through the LCAP, we have some goals that we set for each particular schools. Is that driven through a change, or what other data do you use?
We use, our district has 2 very strong curriculum programs that come with online assessments. Wonders has an online assessment, and Go Math. So initially we use that data, but it's more summative data, whereas Illuminate gives us formative data, which is a lot more powerful. So I used we used our data from our online assessments initially.
And I'll share for Cosumnes Oaks High, we've definitely revised our LCAP plan. In September, we made some large revisions, focusing a lot of our funds towards outreach, kind of going back to our efforts as a PBIS Tier 2 team and reaching out to those most at-risk students and our truant students. And then connected to our new Illuminate platform, we do have funds set aside to do what we call a data dive or a data dialogue. So once we get our teachers transition to using the platform, to provide that space and time to have them work in PLCs within their departments to actually look at the data and then decide and revise their lessons, right, and discuss next steps. So that's where we're focusing on our LCAP funds.
Other question, foster youth, disabled community within your student body over there. Any issues regarding those populations?
Special ed students, is that one of the groups that you're referring to? So I think making sure that they are connected as much as possible. Case managers have spent a lot of time reaching out to families, connecting with families. They are struggling. It definitely is a group that is that has a lot of challenges. I have 4 self-contained classrooms on my campus, and those teachers are doing a fantastic job of reaching out to parents, making sure that kids are connected, altering schedules if need be to get those students what they need, and working well above and beyond their contract to get those kids what they need. For RSP students, same thing, connecting with case managers, providing extra tutoring, extra support for them during the day to get them what they needed. It definitely is a struggle, just trying one thing to make sure that they're engaged while they're on Zoom.
Any more resources like for the IUPs? How those been going on?
They've gone excellent at Zender Ranch. The special education division put together a great plan that we were well planned in ensuring safety when students needed to be tested. And our small groups are going fabulously. Our kids are showing up. That was my concern, was that they wouldn't show up or they would get confused about leaving class and trying to go into the Learning Center's Zoom link, and none of that has been a problem.
Cosumnes Oaks?
Yeah, so when I visit classrooms, and this is something that we've I guess improved on, especially from term 4 and beginning of term 1, but we've strategically placed our paraprofessionals into classrooms. So I'll go into a class, teacher will put them in breakout sessions, and our paraprofessionals are there to kind of just support those kids in small groups. So that's definitely been helpful. In terms of our LCAP funding, we do have funds set aside for our special ed teachers to have that planning and I would say collaboration time with our counselors and our gen ed teachers to further support our special education students.
For those 27 students that are not showing up and you're going out there doing I like that, porch visits. Now, how's that going? Do you need more resources or support from us at the district office or what? How can we help you?
I think the thing that you probably can't really give us is time. That's the one thing we need, right? Is the time to really kind of get out there. You know, we've definitely been trying to carve out the time to make sure. A lot of it is phone calls using our district resource. We have someone we work with in the attendance office who supports us in what we need. But it's, you know, it's on the school sites to make the contacts and all of that. We really have been making as much effort as we can from different angles, porch visits, phone calls, outreach from a variety of different people on campus to get those kids connected. Fortunately, you know, there's only one student of 1,046 who really is disconnected, and we're just doing whatever we can to get him on.
Nice work.
Mr. Perez.
Thank you.
That's it. Keep up the good work. I know, like you said, everybody's going through this learning curve for distance learning, and we didn't expect a lot of things to happen like this. And I think you're doing the greatest job that you can do at this time with the, you know, with the limited resources. Here's a question I have. Yeah, I'm wondering, well, this is to Mr. Hoffman. You know, we have emergency disaster plans. You know, I think this is what we're going through right now, our emergency disaster plan amendment to for distance learning to be included full-time 100%. So have that in mind in your training that, you know, this could be, you know, within your lifetime. This is my first time, but yet it could happen again. And so we have to be aware of the next tragedy, the next emergency that, you know, we may have within our lifetimes, that we should be top-notch technology. Oh, let me ask you this, technology, what can we do in that arena to help you besides imagine training, but is there anything else? I haven't heard anybody say they're using virtual reality type of input in the classroom. Is that happening in your area, virtual reality, using that?
Not the virtual reality. I'll just speak on the technology aspect. We've had a lot of support and been provided resources for technology. Every one of my classrooms has 2 monitors. I do have a dedicated group of teachers who are on site every day. And so they're just very grateful for getting a dual monitor system to really do an engaging instructional thing with their kids every day. So that's been great. We've been able to purchase site-wide licenses for very engaging apps like Pear Deck, Edpuzzle. There's a premium Kahoot app thing that we're also using on site as well. And so I know a lot of these things have definitely improved our instructional program. So I do appreciate that.
Okay. Anybody else?
Technology hasn't been a challenge at Zender Ranch at all. We've received exemplary support from our tech services. I literally have one student who has struggled to maintain connectivity, and we've been trying to work through that of having 1,300 students, one student struggling with connectivity. That's success to me, but we are still trying to work with that family. But overall, technology hasn't been a problem. The district allowed teachers to provided teachers with Elmos who were teaching from home. I happen to be, since Zender Ranch is new, all of our classrooms are outfitted with interactive whiteboards. So my teachers do have the advantage of being able to teach from an interactive whiteboard and being able to visibly see every student on the whiteboard. really makes a huge difference in terms of teaching, especially elementary, since you need to be able to see them. The district provided all teachers with cameras. So from a technology standpoint, Elk Grove, we did an exemplary job in making sure teachers and students were outfitted.
Well, I'm gonna say this, way to go. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Perez. We are on this item till 10:45. So, no, I'm sorry. We're on this item till 11:30. So we're trying to keep each board comment under 10 minutes. And Mr. Perez was right in there. Thank you, Mr. Perez. I didn't even preempt it. You nailed it. Our next person is Mr. Madison, followed by Mr. Fortuna.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I want to thank the reports from all the principals today. I want to probably go back to Miss Murphy. I felt I was really interested in some of your conversations, and it seemed like it just stopped right at that, I think, crucial moment. I was very interested. So I don't know where you left off with the real life lessons you were talking about under the SEL. Can you comment?
Yes, we were fortunate to be given the opportunity to a student, a graduate of a historically Black college, reached out to me to offer me that chance to pilot SEL lessons that he had written. It's a publication. They offered it to us and we tried it out in 6th grade. My 6th grade teachers loved it. And basically they give vignettes of children and their lives. And like an example, one vignette was a young man who had 6 siblings and his mother wasn't home and he had to dress his siblings and get to school, and the teachers were saying that he was lazy. And the students then that was the scenario. The students then get the opportunity to talk in small group and come back and share their thoughts about what the teacher's response was. And they also, the biggest part of these lessons that I love is that it teaches us how we never know what anybody is going through. Yeah. So every lesson kind of leads with, it tells you a story, but it doesn't give, like the teachers don't know the background or another friend doesn't know the background. And so the challenge for the students is to think about how a lot of times we don't know the background of folks' stories and we make judgments. In terms of the human dignity lessons, when I was going through the situation with my son, I didn't even know we had a policy on human dignity. And upon reading that policy, it impressed me so much. I think it is so powerful. And I shared it with my culture and climate team. I have 2 leadership teams. One is culture and climate, and they do mostly social emotional learning. And we began to write lessons around human dignity. And so we have only about 4 lessons so far. But the lessons take a week. So we have 4 weeks of lessons. And so basically what we've sought to do is try to teach children about the humanity in each of us, which is what our board policy is about. And they've been very powerful. It's so awesome to hear kids using the language human dignity. And so we've really pushed forward in that direction with the hope of eventually beginning to talk to our students about equity and about race and racism. But I believe, my personal belief as a teacher when it comes to talking to children about race and racism is that the human factor and the fact that we are a human race and we're all together is a great starting point. And my children, they love these lessons. I go in and I do some of the lessons, as does my vice principals, but the teachers do the lessons as well. But I go in to do the lessons with key classrooms that might have some strugglers and need my presence.
Well, I really appreciate that. And that's why I got interested in when you were talking and you had stopped there. So I appreciate that clarification and continuing it. I'm also intrigued when you mention about the kids at risk, even from the kindergarten or pre-kindergarten. Can you kind of elaborate on that, how you have intervention in that area? Because I think that is so critical.
So
if we get
critical.
kids off on the right track, and I'm talking even in our Title I schools too. So can you comment on that a little bit more?
Part of my training as a leader in looking at and analyzing data, particularly the CASP data, is to look at the number of students who are performing below and make sure that number shrinks. We always want to shrink the number of students who are at not meets. And so when I do CASP with my teachers, that's co-op meetings where we meet one-on-one with them, and teachers identify when we did our CAS at the end of our first trimester, the focus was solely for teachers to identify students who are at risk. And we focused our attention very strongly on reading, particularly complex texts, and rigor, ensuring that the rigor was there, that students, because rigor is what makes students grow. And so our numbers, what we did is we calculated our numbers for every grade of the number of students who are at risk. For example, our highest number of at-risk students are in 4th grade, where there are 26% of the students are at risk. A 2nd grade only has 15%. And I think that reason that 2nd grade and 6th grade has 13%, those two teams literally still plan together, whereas I don't have a lot of planning together out of the other teams because they're not on campus. And so one of the reasons we wanted to identify our at-risk is because we knew we'd get intercession money. And we wanted to focus the intercession money on our at-risk student. Our small group time, that is part of the synchronous time, our teachers only see students who are at risk or strategic. We do not see all students. Whereas that would be wonderful if we could. We really are trying to focus on our students who are at risk. And what we noticed about our students who are at risk, all of those students also have lower home support, and they also make up most of our students who come from single parent households.
Well, again, I really appreciate that, because I think it's so important that these kids, when they come out of the gate, and I call the preschool, kindergarten through the 4th grade, and that's where we have a tendency, we lose them. They can't read by the 3rd and 4th grade. So I appreciate your explanation on that, Ms. Murphy. Thank you. Real quick, with the Mr. Aguirre at the high school level, Iraqi, I'm curious, you mentioned you had a small amount of struggling kids at the school there. Do you have that broken down by ethnicity or some of your subgroups, the struggle?
Yeah, I'm actually looking at it right now. It's one of our synergy reports, at least in terms of mark distribution, grade distribution. And so it's an interesting trend what's going on in terms of our academic progress. In a regular year, you have this bell-shaped curve distribution of grades. A's, B's, C's, D's. Most kids get B's and C's. And we're having this split where there are definitely slightly more kids getting fails across the board, and a lot more kids getting A's. But when you do break it down by ethnicity, race, ethnicity, there is a disproportionality with our African-American students and Latinx students, our Latinx students even more. And it's a similar trend from term 1. I'm looking at the term 2 progress report grade now. And so that's something that I did share with our site council last month. And it's it is aligned with, our LCAP plan and our funding. One of the challenges that we're having right now in terms of trying to support those students is a lot of the students that we're trying to provide that tier 2 support, it's like those same students. So in August, and again, our admin counselor and PBIS Tier 2 team, we've been working together. We have this Google spreadsheet. And so every 2 weeks, we add another tab to it, right? And from August and September, we had about 70, 80 kids on that list. And as of last week, it's about 45 kids. And these are students who are not doing well academically, 3+ fails, as well as students who are having 5 or more period absences per week. And so, we're making the phone calls. There's a column that we put now, on porch visits, even though we're pausing on that right now. But those are some of the things, the efforts we've been doing to support those students.
Okay, I appreciate that. I just, when we're going through difficult times now with the Zoom learning, so I would expect once we get back into some form of normalcy, that we should really be on top of things and look for improvement in a lot of those areas. And then at Pinkerton, question I had, you mentioned about the SEL teachers are a real concern with the lack of engagement by some students. What are these some students?
So in looking at our data, the students that are struggling, African American and Hispanic students, and I think for our teachers, they're working really hard and trying to connect with kids as much as possible. And I think for them, they just don't know what else to do, right? Because all of this is such a new environment. It's not like you can say to the student, hey, wait for me after class and I can help you on this, and it's one-on-one, right? It's really hard. They'll say to kids, hey, stay after during the asynchronous time and I'll connect with you. And sometimes those kids will log off. So it's really trying to connect with those families of the students, having counselors check in as well. Teachers will often, if there's assignments, if the kid has dug themselves in such a hole and it's hard for them to get out, those teachers really will work with that student and say, okay, if you come to class, you're making improvements from this point on, I will take that into account when we're doing your grades. So they're really, I think, just trying to give grace to kids in this situation because, some of those kids, they're home during the day by themselves. There's not a parent monitoring them, making sure they're doing what they're supposed to be doing. They kind of are left up to their own devices at home. So it's just really trying to do what we can to connect with them.
Does the absenteeism fall under that as well?
It would for some of the students, yes. I mean, I think there definitely is a correlation with kids not attending classes and not doing well. So it's kind of the combination of the two, making sure we are monitoring who is not coming to school and also what their grades are like, and trying to, a lot of it is some kids were like, we just want you to log on. That's your first step, right? And then we'll kind of hit the academic piece of it. But kids, there's just kids that are just struggling.
Yeah, and I can appreciate that, but it lends me to offer to make certain that you have a good game plan with some of the hardest work is your challenging students.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it can be addressed if we just pay that attention to it and have our teachers, your counselors, and knowing the amount you have. You have a student body over at Pinkerton, 1,400, 1,300 kids?
We're at we're about 1,050.
Okay, 1,000, and you've got some challenges of what, 70, 80 kids, maybe African Americans. So I think we can give the undivided attention and have a game plan. As I stated before, coming out of the COVID, and hopefully next year we'll get back into some form of normalcy that we can really show improvement, because overall we still have a big disparity with our achievement gap, and you all know that. I'm not going to lecture on that part of it, but some of the things that Ms. Murphy, I'm very intrigued with, particularly at the level coming out of the gate with elementary school kids. So with that, I'll stop. I appreciate all your hard work, and we look forward to a good year next year. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Madison. Mr. Fortuna, followed by Dr. Crystal Matrini.
Thank you. Good morning, all. First of all, I want to make a couple comments, and one, I really appreciate the honesty that I heard in your comments and the thoughtfulness with respect to where the attention needs to be given. Those two things were really impressive to me. Johnny, first question for you. You talked about the value and the importance in the CO team, the regional team meeting on a regular basis. And both personally and professionally, what have you been getting out of those meetings?
You mean our team? Do you
Yeah,
mean
your
our,
team meetings.
my admin team, counseling team?
No, your regional team you were addressing.
Got it. Most of our focus right now has been on Kendi's work, right? How to be an anti-racist. And I would say that the thing that I've gotten out of it is just addressing my own racist practices, personally and professionally, how I, in my privileged role as an administrator, how I perpetuate, unfortunately, you know, racist policies that exist, you know, in our educational system. So it's been a really reflective process, and it's nice to have these conversations with my colleagues who are in administrative positions, right? We empathize and we, you know, have those honest and clear connections with each other, right? Because we have the same struggles as school leaders. And so it's allowed me to grow as a school leader. Those aren't the typical conversations that you have with your colleagues, you know, on a weekly or on a frequent basis, you know, addressing straight on racism, right? A lot of times it's that thing that's kind of just tucked, you know, or, you know, brushed under the carpet. It's something that, you know, it's there, but not necessarily directly talked about. So I've been grateful to have these conversations with my team. I think addressing it individually, you know, makes me a better leader. I could then be a role model for my teacher leaders, and then for our staff as we roll out this book study on how to be an anti-racist in the last part of our school year.
Thank you. How you also had talked about you strategically placed your paras, and what processes did you follow in terms of identifying what the most specific needs were, and who amongst your staff could meet them with respect to the placement of those people?
Yeah, we have 126 what I call resource or students and strategies. It's based on our quarter one grades. We started this mid-term one, but just strategically putting our paraprofessionals who have built established relationships with specific students, we placed them in specific classes throughout the day. And so I know one or two paras, I call them paras, that work specifically with certain students, and they've been placed strategically in key classes. This is something that my vice principal, our specialist who supports our program specialist who supports our special education program, they've been kind of working on this grid in terms of how we can best reach, you know, our students in the strategies program, our resource students.
Thank you. That's helpful, Johnny. Moving to Pinkerton. Hi, Chandra.
Hi.
In terms of the kids who've been identified as not engaging well, struggling, would you say that these are the same kids that you generally deal with, or has the distance learning impacted different kids?
You know, I would say a lot of it is the same kids. When we look at attendance, you know, some of the students that have, you know, that are missing the most school had attendance issues the year before. And it would be the same thing with student grades too, as well. I think kind of what we're seeing is there's a new group of kids that have, bump down into that level that are struggling even more. But on the opposite end, we've also seen other kids who struggled last year who are thriving in distance learning. Because if you take out the social piece, a lot of the anxiety goes away for kids, and those kids are actually excelling. So we've seen kind of both ends of the spectrum happening. The good thing is we team and loop at Pinkerton. So our 8th graders had their teachers last year as 7th graders. So those teachers know their kids well. But we still have a large number of students that are still struggling. And so, it's just trying to, kind of individualize what we do for those kids to see kind of what works, because what works with one student may not necessarily work with another. But we're able to take our large school and bring it down into smaller learning communities, so those kids all have the same 6 teachers. In team meetings weekly, teams discuss those students who are not doing well, what interventions they have taken, and a vice principal and a counselor sits in on that meeting too as well, so they can provide support.
Thank you. Is Mark on board?
Is
Cerruti.
Yes.
Hey,
Yes.
Mark.
Yes, sir.
As we go down the line and continue to collect data, are we specifically collecting the reasons why some kids are doing well? And as Sandra was saying, kids who previously did not do as well are doing well because they have the social issues are removed via distance learning. Are we collecting the data that gives us the specifics as to why we believe kids are doing well or why kids are struggling or continuing to struggle?
So I think my answer to that is what I can do is share with you and the board the survey that is out, because we've got the survey, we're gathering data. And so I'm not skirting the answer, because someone could look at the survey and could be critical of it or say, oh no, that's going to get that information. But we are getting information, we're attempting to get information about what they like, and what are the positives and what are the negatives of their experiences.
I think he's hammering on the wall.
And that report and that information will be gathered for the semester, and then that's what will be coming out and shared with the board. And I'll work with Superintendent Hoffman in terms of the venue when that is shared in January.
Okay, thank you. Because it's one thing to say we have X percent of kids struggling, we got X percent of kids doing well. But if we're going to look at how we can take that information and use it with all kids, you need the reasons. And like Michelle had just shared one reason, and it's one reason amongst many, 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 and that is some kids don't have any support at home or minimal support. And we know the impact of that traditionally and what that means with distance learning. So it's just important to have those. Thank you.
And just quickly, Mr. Fortuna, if I could, just a very quick follow-up to that, and that is, that's the advantage of having our principals and using this time, because the individual teachers and those principals will know the stories. Anytime we attempt to do a broad scale survey, there's value to it, and we get valuable information. But anytime we're aggregating it district-wide, there are certainly advantages to that, but also some disadvantages. And so Mr. Murray and Dr. Grewal and our site administrators, I believe I can speak accurately for everyone, saying they monitor this very, very carefully down to the individual student level.
And I can just, in addition to that, when Mr. Hargy and Ms. Victor and others talk about porch visits and those kind of things, they get to the why. And then they bring that back to their staff, and they try to resolve those matters as a matter of practice.
And very close connection between our sites and our departments, such as family and community engagement, with the work of Lisa Lavasser and her team, Ms. Bollinger and the EL team, when we're working with our newly arriving families and a variety of those things. So I think there's not a single data source that can best provide that answer, but I think we do have it at a granular level all the way to the individual classroom and student level.
All right, thank you. I'm trying to be cognizant of my time before Beth cuts me off. How much do I have, Beth? Okay, I get 10 more minutes?
You're a little over 10 minutes right now, but I'm giving you a few of my minutes.
Thank you. Then let me jump down to Michelle then, and then I have a general question. And I know that I know that all of you are completely engaged with your teachers and your parents. I know that. So in asking Michelle my question, I'm not discounting anybody else's work, but I got to ask Michelle this specific question. And that is that in the last, what, almost 7 months, the board as a board, but me personally, have received hundreds and hundreds of comments from teachers and parents. But I haven't received more than I've received from Zender Ranch. And can you put your finger on, to the best extent you can, the reasons why your parents and teachers feel prepared and comfortable enough to come forward?
I think the number one reason is Zender Ranch is unique to the district as an elementary school, and it's one of the things I plan to meet with Dr. Greenwald about, just in terms of who is Zender Ranch. Zender Ranch is large because we have a significant number of parents. I started trying to count the number of phone numbers I have that start with 408 or 510. So we have a large population of parents from the Bay Area. And what I find that they're doing, because they are talking to me as well, is that they're comparing. And many of them come from Moraga or Orinda area, where they're back in school, and they're doing comparisons from where they came from in the Bay Area, where they are in session, and they have family who is in session, and Elk Grove that is not in session. A large percentage of my parents are not from Elk Grove. I have a lot of multi-generational families. So I think that is one piece. I think another piece is the way I communicate with my parents. I'm very transparent. I reach out to them a lot. They reach out to me a lot. I do a lot of encouraging of communication. And if parents say to me that they want to speak to someone at the board, or they want to speak to Dr. Graywall or Mr. Hoffman, I'm not the type of person to discourage them from that, mainly because I've met one-on-one with my superintendent, and he's been very open to talking. Dr. Graywall is very open to talking. So I don't see that, and you talked to me about that before, so I don't see my parents communicating with the board as negative. I see it as positive, because culturally I'm also very different. I'm African American. Within my culture, we communicate. And so I encourage my teachers to communicate with me. Me and my teachers have very frank conversation. It has been a hard-won battle to get people to open up, but communication is valuable to me. And so I think a lot of it has to do with two things. Number one, my parents a large percentage of my parents coming from the Bay Area. Another piece being the way I communicate and the way I interact with parents, and the transparency with which I don't realize that I'm being transparent. People have to tell me that that's what I'm doing. It's just the way I function. So I think a lot of it just has to do with the culture of Zender Ranch. And Mr. Fortuna, you likely will get more
And
because
love it.
I
Well,
haven't discouraged it.
And,
But they
and yeah, well,
like, no.
yeah,
So
just like Miss Van Housen had indicated, the work they were doing with shy girls, to bring them out, to make sure they're involved. I don't know, my experience has been, as a general rule, you don't hear from people. And so to the extent that people feel comfortable to do that, then something has to be happening that encourages me to be comfortable.
yeah, I'm a proponent of advocacy. I just believe communication and transparency. That's how you build relationship. It's why I'm comfortable going to my assistant superintendent. I have very open conversations with Dr. Graywall. My parents have very open conversations with me. And so I think it's a function of how my site is. Also, my site is also very diverse. 52% of my teachers are people of color. And so that's another thing that you have in place, where when you have diversity, you're going to have a different experience, because diversity is when people feel free to be themselves, they're going to communicate the way they communicate. And I haven't been discouraged in the district from doing that. I've had very open conversations with Mr. Cerruti, it's just how I function. And I think my teachers feel that freedom, and my parents feel that freedom as well.
Well, and I appreciate that.
Okay.
In the past, I was a proponent for doing away with the regional meetings, because I really felt they were a waste of time, because from my perspective, people weren't allowed to speak freely. And with our changes, I became a proponent to bring them back again.
All right.
So
I'm
being cut off. Thank you.
You're being cut off. Thank you. Dr. Martinez-Salier.
So, thank you for all of your updates. I really appreciate it. I noticed common themes amongst all of what your comments were, that being there's some equity work being done. I'm very glad to hear that between all the sites. I know having those uncomfortable conversations, sometimes it takes courage to do so. So I applaud those uncomfortable conversations and welcome those. I also heard from many of you talking about the tutoring aspect, trying to provide more support services for our students. And also, in addition to that, the counseling aspect, where your counselors are reaching out. So I just had a two minor questions. Generally, any of you can feel free to answer. I was just curious, what is being done at the sites for any parent information, as far as like workshops or those being hosted? Maybe those families that might be struggling, or parents even with getting online, or might need that additional support. Are those being offered? Any site, feel free to answer. And also, what is the process for those students who might need more counseling? How is that referral process working? And are the students and families being receptible like to that, or feeling comfortable with requesting those types of services as well? So
I can speak to the counseling piece for students. We have our Tier 2 PBIS that we continue to implement, so teachers can refer a student. And so basically what happens there is that counseling services are offered by a counselor, possibly a school psychologist, depending upon what's going on. We might use Care Solace and refer families out using that website, that service as well, and that has been utilized. Most people, I would say, are open to getting the extra support, especially during this time, because it is so challenging. So we've not really had any issues there, and our counselors really are trying to make more one-on-one connections with students. They'll pop into their classes, they'll go in a breakout room with the student and connect with them that way too as well, or they may have meetings that they'll call the parent puts the student on the phone, and they'll meet with them that way. So counseling services, as much as we possibly can, are being offered.
I can address the supporting parents who struggle with getting online and all of that. We heavy loaded last year the parent view for everybody and just kept talking them through it in multiple languages and over. And our best thing that we have going on is our 2 SOAs in the front office both have children in elementary school. So they have to do all the online. And so we just do a lot of front office IT support, I would say, in the beginning a lot. Now we have people coming back to get new Chromebooks because theirs isn't working, that sort of thing. We still have less than a handful of calls a day for IT help. And we just talk them through, we help them. We get the parents when they're brand new parents learning about how to send their kid to school. And so we just do constant coaching and loving and supporting.
Thank you. I know sometimes as a parent of a middle schooler myself, and I know some of the work, I can allude to that from Pinkerton, some of the great work being done, but just, you know, being a parent and hearing from student perspective, sometimes that maybe even meeting with the teacher after class via Zoom one-on-one can be a little bit intimidating, or talking with them, even though I'm encouraging as a parent my student to do those things. I know if my child's feeling that way, other children might be, so they may be reluctant to get that extra support they need. So I'm glad to hear that all of you are working on that as well. So thank you for your comments and the information you provided today.
Thank you very much. My colleagues have covered many of the questions and issues and compliments I would share as well. I had a few things. Coffee chats are, I believe Ms. Victor is still doing coffee chats. Are you guys doing that where there's a chance for parents to come in and just have a casual conversation?
Yes.
Okay.
I did it one day this year and that will continue after the first of the year.
I do them monthly. I do coffee chats in the mornings and tea chats in the evenings.
Oh, how nice.
The largest one was the week the parents had to decide. And I had 47 people on that day. It was that day, actually, the deadline. But mostly I get about a dozen parents, and I just really want to hear from them how things are going, and I let them share and talk about their challenges. A lot of them are working, the kids are in daycare. I took a list of kids in the beginning that just couldn't concentrate and bought them those science fair boards, you know, the big trifolds, and just had parents come and pick them up. And because those squirrely kids who couldn't focus, they were at daycare or whatever, they can set it in front of their computer and have their own little mini office. And that was actually a huge hit, just a simple fix like that.
Excellent.
At CO, I actually paused on doing coffee with the principal. I would say when this pandemic hit in March, like I think I was having one like not every other week, but I was having them more frequently in term 4 last year. But I, you know, and just kind of hearing things, I definitely need to get that going starting in January again.
Well,
We did parent, that's okay. We did Parent University the first 2 months where parents were able to come in and learn. So we did 2 of those a week for the first 2 months of school, when school started. And I copycatted off of Kathy, and I do tea chats, I don't do the morning chats. I do the tea chats in the evening.
Very cool. As a non-coffee drinker and a tea drinker, I'd have to. I just think, and it's always been my mantra, you guys are doing amazing things, and you're doing your teachers are recreating programs into Google Forms, your teachers are changing lessons. Please share that. I don't want to see 63 different sites. You don't need to be repeating that work. Please get that work up to Mr. Murray. Please get that work up to Dr. Grewal. Share those successes, share those programs you've adapted to this teaching so everybody can benefit from them. I really appreciate all the extra work that's taken. Are your teachers still doing PLCs, and how often? Yes?
Yes, they do them every Monday.
Every Monday. Yeah.
Yep, still happening.
And I know in those teams is when the most magical stuff works, but let's not let it end there. Please share it throughout our whole district, because as good as you're taking care of your kids, we can help someone else take care of theirs too. So that's my 2 cents. Thank you very much. my board, thank you. It is 11:30. We have a 15-minute break called for, and we will be hearing from Elk Grove region starting at 11:45. Was there any last words anybody wanted to say?
Miss Albiani, I know today is the last day for Mr. Madison.
Oh,
I know, Mr. Madison, I don't want to get to crying on this Zoom. Let me pull it together. Woo! Mr. Madison, you have been amazing to me. You have supported me in ways I can't even say. I thank you for the support you gave my children. But for me as a leader, representation matters. Having an African-American board member who really looked out for African-American leaders in the district. I appreciated how often you came to check on me. I was talking to Omar and Sandra yesterday, and I was telling them I had talked to your wife, and she told me it was your last day. And they said the same. You have been amazing to all children, but I have to speak from the African-American standpoint. Community, we appreciate you. You have been amazing. You have been supportive, and I will be forever grateful to you.
Well, I really appreciate that. Thank you. And all of you are going to be missed. And I'm still going to be in the community. So I'll be around, but I appreciate it. Keep up the good work, all of you. This is a great district overall. And it's nothing that working together that we cannot overcome. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Just a note to the principals, thank you very much. You got 1,000 other things going on. And thank you for sharing your stories about your schools and your leadership. Appreciate it very, very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a great day, everybody.
thank you, everybody. Take care.